In this video, I'm going to show you how to play Run and Gun, you know, the class that uses the SMG. On the surface, Run and Gun seems like a really simple class. You only have one weapon to work with, and it's full auto. And honestly, it is pretty simple compared to the other classes, but there's definitely some tricks that will help take your game to the next level. Also, Run and Gun is really dependent on how good your general mechanics are, your movement, your aim, etc. We'll also be going over some time to kill analysis that will help you better understand how the SMG plays on a matchup specific level. But first, why should you play Run and Gun? It's really one of the best classes in the game and probably the most well-rounded out of the top tier classes. There's really no bad situation to pick Run and Gun, and it's a really fast style of gameplay. It feels almost like playing games like Quake, so if you enjoy that sort of arena FPS feeling, then Run and Gun is perfect for you. Run and Gun has a base damage of 18, a very high rate of fire, and 24 rounds in the clip. But these numbers don't mean too much on their own, so we're going to do something a little bit different and do a direct comparison to other classes like the Triggerman. Time to kill, or TTK, is kind of like sort of theory crafting of different matchups. It's not perfect, but I think it tells a better story than the stats alone. First, we're going to see how long it takes to kill the Triggerman as Run and Gun. On a body shot, it took 32 frames, headshot, 21 frames, medium range, about 38 frames, and about 28 frames if it was a headshot, but this was hard to do consistently. Now we're doing the same test with the Triggerman, and you can see that the Triggerman does simply worse at close range, but better at medium range. The revolver takes at least 28 frames, and the sniper takes anywhere between 10 frames if it's a one shot, and 60 frames if it takes two shots. Okay, I know I went through that really quickly, so here's how it all breaks down on a spreadsheet. You can see the Run and Gun only really wins close range with a headshot compared to the Triggerman. The time to kill on a body shot is the same whether you're a Triggerman versus Run and Gun or Run and Gun versus Triggerman, and then Run and Gun will lose at medium distances and above. And against the Detective, you can see that it takes a minimum of 28 frames and you have to land both of your shots. Run and Gun should win against the Detective because you can kill a Detective as fast as 21 frames and they can kill you at a minimum of 28 frames, and that's assuming they land both of their shots. Hunter really depends. I do think that it's a pretty even matchup, but in some situations I often switch to Hunter to counter the full auto classes because I know that I have the ability to one-shot them. But if I miss that shot, then they're going to have a whole lot of time, if they're Run and Gun, to kill you. Now I'm going to show you a real-life example of the damage fall-off using the SMG, and you can see that it's pretty drastic. Jumping back to the spreadsheet again, you can see the numbers for yourself, and the fall-off goes all the way from 11.54% at close range, all the way to 57.69% at very far range. Now, in practice, because of the really high rate of fire, you can still pretty much snipe people from across the map as SMG, but you don't always want to put yourself in those situations where you're at a disadvantage against classes like Triggerman, Hunter, and Detective. Even though the Triggerman has good damage stats, the Run and Gun is just a lot faster, and you can see here that the Run and Gun is 18% faster in our test, and it feels even faster than this in practice. So what do all these numbers really mean? I think it's helpful to have an understanding of them so you can draw your own conclusions, but in practice, things are never really that simple. That's just how theory crafting works. The main takeaway is to understand the nuances of the matchups, so obviously you should know to fight classes like Triggerman up close. If you're fighting Detective or Hunter, if they miss their first shot, that should be like an indicator to you that it's time to pounce on them and go for the kill. Lastly, I personally use Run and Gun as a counter to Detective, knowing that they need to land two shots while I can spray them down even faster than that. Now let's move on to some general Run and Gun tips. So first I'm going to be talking about movement, which of course is going to be important for a class like Run and Gun. You should always be moving. It goes without saying that you should familiarize yourself with sliding and jumping techniques. So if you haven't learned those yet, highly recommend checking out my advanced Krunker tips video. You can rotate the map strategically and get there faster than your opponents. So let's say I'm in a situation where my opponent knows where I am. I can actually wrap around like the other side of the map and come attack him from a side where he's not expecting it. Understand the differences between the dodging type movements, which are the left and right movements, and aggressive movements that are used to close the distance. One thing that I really like to do when I'm playing against classes like Hunter is kind of pounce on them, and I don't jump straight in a straight line for them. I often jump in kind of a diagonal line towards them, so I'm both harder to hit from a left and right direction, but I'm also closing the gap. Alright, so now I have the webcam pointed at my mouse so you can see some of the aiming techniques. So the first type of aiming is going to be tracking. So to demonstrate this, like let's say I stand still right at this opening. As the enemy comes out, I will basically follow them with the mouse, and that's tracking. So this type of movement. There's also click timing, which you would think wouldn't matter. That's the flick style aiming. But to some degree it does, because often what you're doing is you're aiming at one target and then quickly switching to another one, or shooting, dodging, and then shooting it again because you're trying to manage your relatively small clip size. So click timing, well, important with run gun isn't the most important. And then the last type of aim that I want to talk about is also a type of tracking, but it's as if the target is staying like more stationary and you're adjusting the mouse patterns to stay aimed on that target. So it looks like this. So like let's say the box right here is the enemy. So if I'm jumping toward it, I'll be moving the mouse like that. So that's also something that you want to practice, because you're going to be doing that a lot when you're playing run and gun. The other thing that I noticed about run and gun compared to other classes is that you're doing a lot of close quarter combat, and you're switching between long range and close range a lot, and switching targets a lot. So compared to other classes, I like to make sure that I have a bit more mousing room to make sure that I don't run out of space. So there you have it. I hope you enjoyed my guide on how to play run and gun. Overall, I think it's a really great class, regardless of what game mode you're playing. Whether it be free-for-alls, you can really dominate the leaderboard, or capture the flag, you're really great at running the flag back because of your movement speed. And if you're playing competitively, the run and gun fits in really nicely, and of course for pubs, he's great. I will say that after I did the testing, I think that I underrated the Triggerman a little bit, and the Triggerman's a little bit closer in terms of strength to run and gun, but overall I would still give run and gun the edge because of a very similar time to kill, but you have the ability to rotate the map much more quickly, and you don't always have to be putting yourself in the situations where you're taking a long range fight. So this is PhilzGoodMan. Hope you enjoyed the video, and if you do, please be sure to like and subscribe to my channel. Thank you.